Hotline Miami 2 was always a game I associated with weird people, or the odd or mentally deranged people in Discord servers I'd always see playing this game for hours on end, and I'd never heard of it before. After seeing some of the gameplay, it being this pixely top-down shooter game, I wondered how someone could ever put hundreds of hours into it, until one day I was doing the typical video game burnout thing, where I'd just stare at my Steam library wondering what to play, even though I'd never end up choosing something and falling deeper into depression. But I decided one day why not to play Hotline Miami 2, and what followed was, well, you're about to find out. The game opens with a tutorial of a man in a pig mask breaking into a house, killing people, and then doing sexual violence before the lights flash, and it's revealed that all of that was just part of a film, and all the crimes we just committed as the man in the pig mask was just part of a script in the film, and then the tutorial ends and we move on to the actual story of the game. This opening at first seems completely random as we quickly move on from it to a different character with a different story, but in fact most of this game is just random bits of story and random bits of chaos. However, slowly amongst the chaos a narrative slowly forms, but we can't even begin to talk about that without talking about all the random bits of story first, so let's continue. In the first proper level of Hotline Miami 2, we see 5 characters in masks called the Fans commit murder for some unknown reason, which after they do, they go grab some pizza. Now before I keep talking about the sequel, I probably need to explain what happened in the first game first. So in Hotline Miami 1 we played as Jacket, who in short got coded messages on his phone which told him to go kill people, which he did. And that film we saw getting filmed at the beginning of Hotline Miami 2 in the tutorial was actually supposed to be a depiction of the events in the first game, however it got a lot of things deeply wrong. And the Fans, the people we just played as killing people in masks, are called the Fans because they're fans of the events of the first game and they idolise Jacket and what he did, and that's the reason they're killing people, to try and recreate what he did. We then cut to playing as another new character, Manny Pardo, who shoots up a store.
Okay.
After the police confront him about it, he just says he's an innocent detective before flashing his badge and then buggering off, showing that this guy clearly has a private dark side when he's in his murdering phase and a public good side when he's in his detective authority figure phase, just like Patrick Bateman. He then goes to a crime scene where he investigates a serial killer before we cut to playing as another new character. Jake is an American Confederate Patriot Discord mod who gets a coded phone call just like the ones from Hotline Miami 1 telling him to go shoot up a building, and whilst Jake seems annoyed at the phone call at first, he seems to understand as he goes ahead and shoots up a building. We then cut back to playing as the actor for the man in the pig mask from the tutorial, so finally we're playing as a character we've played as before. Now the man in the pig mask, who's also called Martin, confesses he only took the role for the movie that he's playing in just so he could live out his violent fantasies. Suddenly, everyone in the room dies as he realises that he's just dreaming as a man in a chicken mask called Richard approaches him. Now Richard is from the previous game and he's kind of a ghostly apparition who vaguely hints at the fates of characters, as he tells Martin that he probably shouldn't be doing this movie for his violence or else it's not gonna end well for him. Of course Martin doesn't care. In the finale for chapter 1 of the game, we play as Martin, who's just shooting a scene for a movie where he breaks out of prison. However, there's a scene where he gets shot, but instead of being shot with a fake gun, it appears an accident happened and is shot with a real gun, killing him. The story of Martin the actor is very detached from the main plot of the game as it's mostly just symbolic. There were many players who used Hotline Miami 1 to live out their violent urges with the excuse that it's just a video game, and Martin does the exact same thing, living out his violent urges in movie scenes with the excuse that it's just a movie. So he can easily be seen as a commentary of those same people and what happens to them. The main point of Martin's death is simply to prep the player for future deaths and how this game is willing to kill off characters so carelessly, so let's keep looking at it. Starting off Act 2, we play as yet another new character, Evan, a book writer who's writing a book on the events of Hotline Miami 1, who meets up with Detective Pardo from earlier to get some information, marking the first time two of our playable protagonists cross over. Pardo directs Evan to go talk to a member of the Russian Mafia, as they know a lot of information on what he's researching, so the level consists of Evan walking right into a Russian Mafia hideout, almost getting himself killed in the process. Now this raises two questions. First of all, why is Evan so obsessed with his book to the point that he'll go into a Russian Mafia hideout, almost get himself killed in the process, all for the sake of getting interviews for his book? And second of all, how the hell does Pardo have connections to the Russian Mafia if he's a detective? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's corrupt considering he massacred a supermarket of people. In the next level, we return to playing as the masked killers from the beginning, the fans, as one of them gets a call from their friend telling them to go rescue their sister from a group of thugs, and after the fans shoot up the thugs, it turns out that their friend's sister was actually there on their own accord, and we just shot up all of their friends, and thus they don't want to come with us, and after the fans leave, it's presumed that their friend's sister reports them to the police, so it turns out this was actually a blessing in disguise, as now the fans shooting are all over the news, and now the fans are famous, which is exactly what they want. We then cut to playing as another new character called the Henchman. Now the Henchman works for the Russian Mafia that Evan investigated earlier, and he's not happy with it, as he wants to leave to live a more comfortable and safe life with his girlfriend, and he asks his boss, who's called the Sun, if he can do so, and the Sun says yes, but only if he can complete one last assassination mission. After completing his final assassination mission, the Sun lets the Henchman leave and gives him some money to live off of. However, during his sleep, the Henchman's girlfriend nicks all of the money that Sun gave him, leaving the Henchman to crawl back to the Mafia that he hates. In the finale for Act 2, we see the aftermath of the previous events, where we see the Henchman getting high in a nightclub in the depression of what just happened, rotting away in sorrow, when suddenly the fans show up and kill everyone in the building, including him.
Okay.
For me, this is the first holy shit moment of the game, because not only do two of our protagonists cross over, but one actually kills the other. To the fans, the Henchman is yet another goon that they have to take out, no different to anyone else they just massacred in the building, but to the player, naturally we're a little bit more emotional at this death since we've gotten to know this guy a little more. Up until this point, the fans have mostly been jokes, unlike other characters like Manny Pardo or the Henchman who have a lot more serious objectives and missions. The fans give the impression that they're just mucking about most of the time. And this scene where they kill the Henchman makes you realise that they're no less serious or worse than any of the other characters who are killing people, and that one day is probably gonna bite them in the arse. The opening level for Act 3 takes place about 4 years before the events of the main game, as we play as another new character who people just call Beard, and Beard is fighting a war against Russians in Hawaii. Outside of a cameo from Jacket from the first game, who's fighting alongside Beard in this war, and Evan the book writer who takes an image of Beard and Jacket, nothing much of a note really happens in this level, as it's mostly just setting up things to come, so let's move on for now. In the next mission, we return to playing as our good friends, the fans, as they raid an underground sewer where bodies are being disposed of. Now, the fans' missions are slowly escalating more and more, getting more and more risky and dangerous, as they get more and more connected to the wider conspiracy and plot, as now they're planning to go after the Russian Mafia, who seem to be at the centre of this whole story. We then get a brief scene where Manny Pardo, the deranged detective, interrogates one of the fans. You see, Jack is the name of the person that told the fans to go massacre that building in order to rescue their sister, and after Jack's sister reported them to the police, Manny Pardo was sent to go investigate the case, and off screen when Pardo was interrogating Jack, Jack fessed up to the name and location of one of the fans. And so Pardo goes to investigate that fan's house, but instead of finding that particular fan, he finds their sister, who's also part of the fans, but he doesn't know that, and their sister manages to warn Pardo off. In the next level, Pardo continues killing more people, but in particular the people he's killing are part of the Colombian Mafia, who are rivals with the Russian Mafia, which kind of strengthens his connection to the Russian Mafia that was brought up earlier when he was talking to the book writer Evan. And if that wasn't confusing enough, well, it's about to get a whole lot more confusing, as after that, Pardo goes ahead and investigates a murder that seems to be connected to the serial killer he's investigating, but the person he's been murdering is none other than Jack. And in the scene before this one where he interrogated one of the fans, in his trunk there's Jack tied up, implying that after he interrogated Jack to learn the name and address of one of the fans, he then kidnapped him and then murdered him, and he's actually the serial killer murdering people that he's investigating, making it likely he was only trying to figure out who the fans were, not for justice and to arrest them for their massacre, but so he could pin the murders that he himself are doing on them, since they already have a bad reputation. Another more likely theory is that the serial killings are actually caused by the Russian mafia. Pardo just kidnaps people like Jack, takes them to the Russian mafia because he has connections with them, the Russian mafia kill them, and then Pardo can investigate them and then get famous for investigating these big crimes. Perhaps he aspires to have a movie made around himself one day, similar to how a movie was made around Jacket of the first game. In the scene where he's talking to Evan the book writer, we can even see him tell Evan to stop investigating Jacket of the first game and instead investigate the serial killings he's investigating, which just hints more at his lust for fame. Now, you may have noticed I haven't been talking about the gameplay at all, and I've only been focusing on the story, and there's a reason for that, and that's because these levels give me an absolute brain aneurysm because they're so fucking hard. Every time I try to go somewhere or get a little bit of progress, bam, I die, it's back to the start, and then every time there's enemies shooting you off screen, coming around the corner, bang, whoops, you stood in front of a window that there was an enemy at, you are dead, and then, oh, the game crashed because one of the USBs in your computer became a little bit unplugged. It's so annoying.
I want to fucking break everything! You fuck! That was it!
In the finale for Act 3, the son, aka the leader of the Russian Mafia, calls the henchman to tell him about the Russian Mafia's recent successes, unaware that the fans have killed the henchman and now have his phone, and when the son is bragging to the henchman about the Russian Mafia's successes, he's actually just telling them to the fans instead. When the fans get this phone call from the son, they are looking for a new place to shoot up but are at a loss for ideas, and after hearing this message from the son, they get an idea to go raid the headquarters of the Russian Mafia and take him out. And so, in one of the best levels of the game, they do exactly that, as we get to play as each of the fans as they take out a different floor of the building. Eventually, two of them manage to make it to the roof, where they try to call the rest of the group, but they don't respond, when the son shows up and shoots both of them dead, and it can be presumed that they killed the rest of the fans as well, thus ending their storyline. There isn't really anything to say here, the fans just went after a fish too bigger than them and got themselves killed. That's it. This also continues the trend of one of the playable characters dying at the end of an act. So it can only get worse from here. There's one last scene before that act ends where Manny Pardo investigates the crime scene that the fans have created at this place. He finds one of them still alive but just shoots them in the head. Just like how the fans killed the henchman without a care in the world, thinking him as just another goon, so did Pardo to the fans. As Pardo's leaving, he notices another corpse on the floor. It can't be one of the fans because we've already seen all their corpses, and it can't be some random goon because too much attention is drawn to it for it to be that. Guess we'll have to continue playing to see who it is. Kicking off Act 4 after such a hype level with a crazy ending, we play the complete opposite of that as we play as bookwriter Evan deal with a gang who's taken over a subway. Yup, that's it. No relevance to the story whatsoever. There is a brief scene though where Richard, the ghostly man in the chicken mask who we saw in Martin's dream before he died, approaches Evan and tells him that he probably should stop obsessing about his book because it's getting in the way of his family life, proving that Evan's obsession with writing his book and him risking his life for it is a little bit toxic. Speaking of his book, in order to get more information on it, he interviews a woman called Rosa, who's the mother of Richard, who is a man who, just like the protagonist of Hotline Miami 1 and Jake, received some phone calls telling him to go kill people. Richard isn't relevant till later though, so we'll get back to that. We then go back to playing as Beard in the battle against the Russians in Hawaii as we experience his back and forth struggles in the war. Something I've not yet noted is that in the first game it was revealed that a group called 50 Blessings was behind the phone calls telling people to go kill people. And the people that 50 Blessings were telling people to go kill were were Russians, which explains why Jacket went along with it so easily, because as we see here, Jacket was in a war with Beard against the Russians, and he probably has a bias towards. It also explains why Jake went along with the phone call so easily, because, you know, he's an American Confederate Patriot Discord mod. Of course he likes the idea of killing Russians. Speaking of Jake, we get to play another level as him after not doing so since Act 1, where he gets kidnapped and killed.
Okay.
There is an alternate path where you can avoid Jake getting kidnapped and killed, but he just gets killed anyway by a member of 50 Blessings, because Jake was so enthusiastic about 50 Blessings and killing Russians that he started publicly bragging about it, which made him a liability to the secret mission of the group, so they just had to take him out. Anyways, back to playing as Beard. All of his squad mates die in one of their missions, all of them except for Jacket, the protagonist of the first game, who he barely rescues from the crumbling building. Suddenly there's a time skip until after the war where Beard is working a normal life in a supermarket talking to Jacket over the phone when suddenly a nuke hits the city and kills him. Whilst at first this seems like just another lol random death of the game, this one feels particularly cruel. Unlike all the other characters who died who were somewhat fucked up in the head or evil, Beard was just trying to live a normal life only to be killed by a nuke he didn't even see coming. This nuke was sent by the Russians in retaliation for the war, and because of how bad the nuke was and all the people it killed, it prompted America and Russia to sign some kind of peace treaty, which resulted in them just, you know, being normal, neutral, and Americans and Russians living in each other's countries peacefully. However, some racist fellas naturally hold a grudge against the Russians, and thus they formed the group 50 Blessings, and called up people who they knew didn't like the Russians in order to convince them to help them on their mission and to kill them. One of these people that they called up to go kill Russians was Jacket, who obliged completely, killing and taking out the entire Russian mafia. Then a couple years later, the Russian mafia managed to rebuild themselves as led by Sun. The fans gather together to admire Jacket and try and recreate his killings, but they're all killed out by the sun. A movie is made around Jacket's killings, which ends in disaster when the lead actor is shot for real, but this inspires Pardo, as Pardo wants a movie to be made around himself, so with the help of the Russian mafia he orchestrates his own serial killings for him to investigate, in hopes that one day these serial killings get a movie made around them, which he can be in, and thus he'll get famous. And then there's Evan, who just wants to write a book about the whole situation but gets a little too obsessed with it, disregarding his family in the process. And that's the story so far, so let's keep on digging. Act 5 is the only act in the game where we play as one character for all 4 of the act's levels, that being Richer. Now, unlike Jacket and Jake, who are killing Russians because they want to kill Russians, Rich is only listening to the phone calls and killing Russians because he's scared of what 50 Blessings might do to his sick mum. At the end of the act, Richer goes to prison for all his killings but then escapes when a riot occurs, and after he gets out of prison he goes to hide out in Hawaii. Whilst in Hawaii, he's contacted by Evan over the phone, who wants to know all about what happened to him for his book, and Richer agrees to tell him everything as long as he gives his mum a plane ticket to Hawaii so Richer can take care of her, which he agrees, and yeah, he does tell him everything. Nothing much of note really happens in this act except for at the end where we go back to playing as Evan the book writer, and he's given the choice to either keep writing and obsessing over his book or, you know, actually listen and choose his family over the book. And now suddenly we're on Act 6, the final act of the game, the finale. The character we play as for most of Act 6 is the Sun, the leader of the Russian Mafia. This story has been odd to say the least, with no clear good guy or bad guy whatsoever, but Sun is clearly a character of interest after he killed the fans, and of course he's at the top of the hierarchy, outside of the 50 Blessings group, who we have no idea what they're doing right now. Initially, I thought Sun would be a complete asshole, considering he's at the top of the main antagonistic group. It would only make sense for him to be the main villain, but no, he's actually quite smart and strong, as he manages to pull off robbing a bank, which is the biggest feat any character has accomplished so far, only rivaled by Beard winning the war in Hawaii. He even took down the Colombian Mafia, but there is a theory that he's actually completely delusional, and he didn't rob a bank or take down the Colombian Mafia, and he actually had his his men do it for him and he's just imagining himself doing it. But that's just a theory. Also, this video is now the longest video on my channel. That's cool. We do get one level in this act where we don't play as Sun and instead we play as Manny Pardo, who's having a nightmare where he gets caught for all his serial killing. Even though he wakes up and realizes it's just a dream, he remains paranoid and barricades his room and stays in there with a gun. Now you may have noticed the title of this video. The video essay on a game I couldn't finish, and yeah, I couldn't finish this game because this one level, Takeover, is so freaking hard. I have this entire paragraph in my script explaining why the level is so bad and every little detail is there to push you over, but you know, I'm too tired for this. I'm not reading all that. I just can't be bothered anymore. After all the hours I put into that one bloody level, I've just gone completely insane over it. I'm no different to all the mentally deranged people I saw playing this game in the first place that introduced me to it. It's painful. The level isn't even that hard, it's just my playstyle was the complete opposite of what the level wanted me to do, and so it just crushed me over and over again until my game eventually crashed and I lost all my progress. In the finale for the game, we see the Sun celebrate and take some drugs where he gets completely high and insane and he goes ahead and kills all of his men in his madness. We then get to see the Sun's perspective of when he killed all of the fans, but he's so high and insane when he's killing the fans he imagines them as rabid animals that their masks were betraying. After the big, complicated narrative we've just experienced with all these different characters, to end the story with one guy just in a drug-fueled rage there's something ironic about it. At the end, he jumps off the building in a drug-fueled rage, revealing that the corpse that Pardo saw when he was walking out the building after killing one of the fans was actually the Sun. In the ending for the game, we see Richard and his sick mum watching some TV in Hawaii, when suddenly the TV broadcast is interrupted to reveal that the Russian and American president have both been assassinated by who we can only guess is 50 Blessings. Suddenly, Richard, the ghostly chicken mask man, approaches Richard and tells him that he's gonna die soon. Richard accepts his fate as a Russian nuke hits him. As after their president was assassinated, Russia didn't take too lightly to it, and so launched a bunch of nukes to the USA, effectively killing everyone. And so in one last fuck you, sudden death, Hotline Miami kills off every single character. Evan, the book writer, Manny Pardo, the deranged detective, and Jacket, the protagonist of the first game in his prison cell, all get killed off by the Russian nukes. This is just sad. There's nothing to talk about. The meaning is that all of it was meaningless. All the anti-Russian racism, all the obsessive killing for fame and fun, it all just leads to crap like this. So moral of the story, don't kill people.
Oh shit! Fucking window! Fuck! 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 Fuck!
Okay, so far so good. Last time I said that I got killed immediately.
Fuck!
I'm getting worse. I'm getting fucking worse.
Alright!
I'm just gonna go for this guy. Ready? He's gonna fucking blast the shit out of me. No, fuck that. I'll get the gun. That makes way more sense. Oh yeah, here it comes. You want some? Fuck you. Alright, well, you got some.